thank you for stopping by my channel. If you're here for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe and give me a like, and also push the notification bell so you could keep receiving my content. This is a part 1 of a 2-part video tutorial on my willow cake. In this video we're going to cover the making of the hanging branches, the edible moss, and the chocolate mushrooms. Don't forget to watch the second part to this video, and I'll try to link it down below, as well as all the materials I used for this. Using a dark color string, which I tied at one end, I made it a double because it was very thin, and this is what I'm gonna do to mimic the hanging branches of the tree. I made around 50 of these strings, and at the end when I put them on the cake, it didn't look like it had enough, so I ended up making around like 20 more, and the tree still looked bare at the end, so you have to make a lot of these things. Okay, now to make the leaves of the leaves for the branches, I'm using shredded coconut. It's dehydrated shredded coconut. I'm going to be using Wilton Kelly green and a little bit of brown. I'm going to add it to the shredded coconut and then massage it thoroughly until I get the desired color. I'm also going to be using the same method with graham cracker crumbs, which I'm going to be using on the cake to make edible moss. Once I added the desired amount of food color, I massaged the bag around to mix the coconut shavings with the color. And now I'm going to be using Isomalt. I'm going to be melting this Isomalt in the microwave, and you need to be very careful when you're using Isomalt. It's sugar, and you could get really bad burns if you're not careful. At first I started with just a regular Isomalt and dipping my string on it and then passing it on the coconut shavings, but I noticed that you could see the crystallization of like the white color of the clear color of the Isomalt, which I didn't like. You can see it right here and the little pieces that I missed, so I decided to color my Isomalt the same color as my coconut shavings, and that helped to look a bit better. Here I'm just dipping my string in the Isomalt and being very careful not to touch it with my hands, and then passing it through the coconut shavings. This is something that you can make days or even weeks ahead of time and just store them in an airtight container, and they'll be fine. And for the next step, we're gonna do the edible. Well, I'm gonna show you how to make the edible moss. This is like the bread kind. There's different types. There's different ways of making edible moss, but this is the bread kind, and it's a very simple recipe. In a clean bowl, you're gonna add an egg, 1 room temperature egg, and the sugar. I left the measurements on the description box. You're gonna fluff the egg and the sugar really good until it gets nice and fluffy. Right here you see me doing this like right away, but I have it the video sped up for the purposes of making it shorter, but you want to make sure that you fluff up that egg and that sugar before you add the baking soda, or the baking powder, I'm sorry, and the flour. And you're gonna have to be careful not to over mix and flatten your batter as well. After you do that, you add the desired color. Here I'm adding different shades. I started with 1 shade of green, and then I added brown, and then after that I added a different shade of green, and this yields enough for you to decorate a cake. I mean, it's a very small batch, but for the purposes that I was gonna use it for, I had a lot left over. Once you have colored your batter to your liking, you're gonna add it into, preferably if you use paper cups, it's even better, but I didn't have any, so I just used what I had. I divided my batter, and this is a recipe that you pop in the microwave, and since my little bowls were so tiny, I did it like 20 seconds at a time, and it was more than enough to cook my batter. This is also something that you could make ahead of time. Pop it in the freezer and forget about it, and then take it out when you actually need it. I made this maybe around like a week ahead of time, and uh, this is just when I just finished cooking it. This is how it looked, but I did put it in a container, in an airtight container, and I put it away in the freezer, and I took it out and it was just fine. It was just like the day that I made it. So this is a very forgiving recipe. Uh, you're able to store it, put it away, and take it out whenever you need it. It's good for at least 3 months in the freezer, maybe longer, maybe 2 weeks in the refrigerator. Now to make the chocolate mushrooms. I started off with this little palette thing that you use to put paint on. I'm using a piece of paper foil, and I'm just passing my fingers through to make the little molds or the indents. And I'm going to be using Wilton candy melts. Uh, Wilton candy melts they harden really quick, and you don't have to temper the chocolate, so I thought that this was a quick and easy method to use. After I put them into the little mold, I let them set for a little bit, and then here I'm using parchment paper, and I'm gonna fill it up with the chocolate and let it set as well. After that, I'm gonna be cutting it into different size pieces. You could also use a boba straw or even a regular straw to make the sticks of the mushroom or the stems. These are bigger mushrooms that I made using a mini cupcake mold or a pan, and you could literally make any kind of size with this. You could go up from the regular cupcakes to the mini cupcakes or to these little tiny ones that I made. Before the chocolate completely set, I took out a little bit from the middle. This is going to make it easier for when I'm attaching the little chocolate stem. You have a little like groove in the middle, and you're able to stick the things better together. I also did like these little lines with a scribe tool, but at the end it was, I guess, an unnecessary step because you couldn't even see on the bottom of the mushrooms. But it's a little extra touch that you could do as well. Once all my parts were set, I proceeded to cut the little sticks in different lengths, and then attaching them to the tops of the mushroom. I set those aside and let them dry, and I then proceeded with the next type of mushroom that I made for the cake. I made a little cylinder out of half modeling chocolate and half bonded. I colored it to my liking. I made like a kind of a mustard, like a dark mustard color. um, I made a cylinder, and then after the cylinder I cut the cylinder in little pieces and then in halves again, as you're gonna see a little bit further in this video. And after that, I pinched the thicker side and I put it on this little painting palette to set and to dry. And since it has modeling chocolate, it didn't take long for my little mushrooms to set. As always, this is the first part of the willow cake, 3D willow cake video that I made. Don't forget to go and check out the second part. That's the actual making of the cake. And please don't forget to subscribe and like my content. Thank you. Don't forget to go and check out the second part of this video.